Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I'm super excited for my guest today because just reading her bio and just getting to know her a little bit, wow, she's such an encourager. My guest today is Nancy Griffin. She is a connector and an influencer, attributing her success to personal courage, determination, and joy when focusing on women's health and wellness. Hence, she created the Woman Worth and Wellness. She enjoys every opportunity to inspire and inform women about their personal health and wealth, net worth and self-worth, philanthropy, and legacy, so that women feel fabulous, generous, joyful, confident, and on top of their game every day. Welcome, Nancy. I'm super excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Angelina, and congrats to you for all the fabulous work that you are doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. What I love is that you are just out there to help women. And I just wanted to know what inspired you to create Women, Worth, and Wellness.
Okay, well, I was recruited into the wealth advisory business in 1992, and that was super. That was really super. And actually, came from another lady who I was talking to about a contract that I'd been offered with a completely different organization. And this is one of my learnings along the way. She just basically turned my head 180 and she said, I'm not sure why you're thinking that's a good place to spend the next 20 years of your life. And she said, I've just started into wealth advisory. There are very few women. I really think you should take a look at that. So it's like, oh, okay, because I was kind of at a fork in the road. And so met with her boss, great guy. We hit it off. He said, okay, well, you've got to be licensed. So go do the exams and get your credentials and then come back and away we'll go. So, of course, great company, great manager, great training program. He said, the only thing we don't have for you, Nancy, is any clients. You've got to go find your own clients. It's like, oh, okay. And I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, so now I'm an entrepreneur. And the advice that they gave, which was spot on, they said, whoever you think you can add value to in their whole life's journey is exactly who you want to be working with as your clients. So that's when I thought, okay, I'd already been through some challenging times myself, as a woman. And I thought I'm going to focus on women, not exclusively, but primarily. So that sort of was the starting point in terms of getting underway in the wealth advisory business, but also focusing on women.
Oh, that's awesome. You mentioned a little bit about how you had already been through some trials and tribulations, or some things yourself. Um, is that what helped you focus on, like, I'm going to help others? And like,
Yes.
do you want to talk to us a little bit about that story? And if you don't, that's okay. I just,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
I'm happy to. I'm happy to. I was one of the first female managers with Procter and Gamble in Canada, and that was a big deal. But the thing is, once you get underway, then people kind of forget about you. So you kind of go along, go along. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Every time I wanted to leave and do something else, my boss would manage me back into the business. And that was another learning because you really need to pay attention to who you are taking advice from. This person, he was obviously over me. He had all the power in terms of my career, but he didn't have one entrepreneurial bone in his body. And I didn't know that at the time when you're in the middle of all of this. And so finally I left. I ran politically. And we had an incident in our community that was like, oh my goodness, somebody's got to do something about this. And it's kind of like, well, if not you, then who? And so it was kind of a perfect exit. And so I was doing leadership roles in the community for about 4 years. And that in itself was like an MBA. It really was incredible because in corporate, there's a structure, whereas in the community, everybody is the structure. Everybody has a voice. And you know what? No one person has the right voice. So if you're in a leadership role, you've got to really, really be an excellent listener, and you really have to focus on what in the world is going on in the community that you're trying to address, and how can you influence people to get to a better spot. So a whole new skill set. And it was during that process that I thought, oh my goodness, the more you do in the community, the more there is to do in the community. I have to get a new job out of this community. And so so that's how it all came about, but it was all meant to be, and it was fabulous.
I love that you share that. It's like, when you realize that you're not getting the support or the help that you need, you're like, okay, I got to do something else. And also, you didn't necessarily say it, but in my thoughts, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I had the feeling that you felt like you were made for more and you were being limited.
Exactly. Made for more and limited. You're spot on, spot on. But the thing is, for that whole phase of your existence, it's like 4 or 5 years
Hmm.
because you start to think this isn't working, and then you look at, well, maybe it is working, and maybe I shouldn't be too hasty, and blah 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 blah. But you're absolutely right. And then it gets to the point where, you know what, this is not going to get any better. And the one thing that this VP was doing was not promoting me for international assignments. And if you're an upwardly mobile manager, you need to have an international assignment. And he kept saying, no, no, she's not available. I found out later that people who were asking for me had been continually turned down. The reason why he was saying no was because I had a child. I was married. It was like, I mean, that was way back when. Time to go.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I mean, when I want to also say, congratulations on being being one of the first women into a managerial position that was very unlikely heard of. I've had a little bit of similar circumstances myself where I was a female manager, had a bunch of men underneath me, and it was like you kind of felt like you were trying. It's like you're kind of fighting for your own and for the respect and also the leadership. You're trying to lead them, but they don't, maybe not, things may not always work out correctly, or they may not see your value. And I think that being a mother, and a wife, and all of those things on top of being a manager, a leadership role, I think is really important, and people don't really understand that because you're constantly at work, right? You're constantly leading. You're the example for your children. You're the you're helping your husband. You're doing all the things, and I think that that's important that you find that balance. So, did you find balance, or how did you manage to do all of that?
Well, it was always challenging. It was always challenging. But on the other hand, it's like, well, so what? I mean, you find a way to keep on going. You do. And once I got into wealth advisory, then it's almost like the script is flipped because now I'm in an advisory role. So even though you've got challenges yourself, they're minimized because your focus is on your prospects and your clients. So really, it's a split screen scenario. You just fade to black anything pertaining to you, and you just bring all your energies towards understanding where this person is coming from and what are those issues that that person is dealing with that you really feel you can add some value to. The reason I got off onto a health tangent versus wealth is because I found that a lot of the women that I was sitting down with really were overwhelmed with all of the responsibilities they had as a mom, going to work, dealing with your family. I mean, a lot of the things that I dealt with. And I thought, you know what? It's almost like every family has mom as a nurse practitioner. But how much does she know about health and wellness in her family? Everybody expects her to know, or let's go to whomever to get that help. And so I thought, I'm going to partner with not for profit health related organizations that are focusing on women's health. And at the time, I was in Toronto, based in Toronto, and we have a fabulous hospital there called Women's College Hospital, over 100 years old, and all about women's health and wellness. So they would be offering seminars and different events. I would encourage my clients to go, bring their friends with them. We charged a nominal amount, and that then introduced the whole concept of enhancing your net worth through charitable giving. But also, when you're in a position to give, more often than not, the person that is giving ends up being the greater recipient because it enhances your own self worth.
I love all that. I love that. I think it's so important that, like you said, when you started to notice things and, all these things kept dropping in, you're like, wait, there's a need for this. Just like you said, back to the community. Once you knew that there was a, if not who, it's me, you kept seeing that there was things like these little droppings of like, hey, Nancy, you need to do this. I love that. I wanted to, in your work in health, what do you see women struggling with the most when it comes to their health?
Just knowing they're worthy of looking after themselves first.
Hmm.
It's like the airline message we all get, put the oxygen on first. But then the thing is, okay, now that you've got the oxygen on, you're in a preferred position. So now what? Like, now
Hmm.
what? Really start to think about being the best you can be. But when you are the best you can be, you're then in a position, in a much greater position, to help others be the best that they can be. As women, we often go to others first and compromise our own well being. So, the biggest barrier that I see is women knowing that they are worthy. They're not being selfish, they're being worthy of making themselves the best that they possibly can be.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I focus on helping people with time management, coaching, consulting. But one of the things I tell my people on my one-on-one clients or even in my community is when we are scheduling your calendar, you're putting out what you got to do for the week. The first person you put on that calendar is you. When are you gonna take care of
Good
your
for you.
self-care? Like, when are you gonna get your exercise in, your movement? When you making sure that you schedule time to eat and all of these things because those are things that the woman doesn't think about. What they think about is their family first, but it's like you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're not taking care of your health, then who will, right? And
Spot
so
on.
taking care of your family, your health first, then your family, and then you worry about work because that's just and then I said, even when you go in when you're like getting ready for your day, don't think about work and all the other things. That's your precious time to be intentional about, taking care of yourself. And then when you're, sitting at a meal with your family, be intentional with that time. When you're at work, then you focus on work, which is kind of what you talked about earlier, is you also said that is when you even though you had some challenges yourself, when you were working in that advisory role, you were working about making sure you were focused on the people that you were helping and push your things aside because you were being intentional with your time as you were growing your business. So I think that's really
Correct.
important.
Yep, exactly.
So with this, with the health and the wellness, the advisory you do is like, kind of just talk to us about that. What is it that you exactly do for those who may not understand everything that you provide for them?
Well, first of all, we know that we are the number one asset. And nobody is going to look after that number one asset better than we will for ourselves. So it's just reinforcing what we've already said. So your health comes first, and then you start to focus on putting together your whole wealth plan. I really, really, really encourage people to find a trusted wealth advisor with whom you can work, because that person will have credentials and experience. But more importantly, you want that person to have your back. And as you start that relationship with that person, they need to understand everything about you. From a financial standpoint, they need to understand your assets and your liabilities, but they also want to know, what are you working towards? What are your aspirations? How do you want all this wealth to unfold going forward into your future? I also say, if you're working with a wealth advisor who has not anticipated health related challenges, then you're working with the wrong person, because we know critical illness can kick in, disability can kick in, premature death can kick in. And what you don't want to do is be drawing down 401k funds or savings funds to cover income that you might have had through other sources of protection. So it's up to that wealth advisor to do the what ifs with you so that you feel exceptionally confident with everything that you've got in place that's going to address your long-term retirement, your kids' education, starting all those things, as well as what if something tragic could happen.
That's such good helpful advice. Like doing that, it's like looking for me from a manufacturing background. I would say it's like just a risk assessment. What ifs, right?
Yes,
And what are
yes,
the risks if we don't go ahead and look at those? And so, if our wealth advisor or trusted advisor is not asking us these things, then we need to try to find it. We need to find a new one, right?
correct. You got it. You got it.
How do you manage to get people to trust you in making sure that they are not looking just at their wealth, but they're also looking at their health? Like, how do you tie that in? How do you do it so that women can decide to make those important decisions for themselves?
Well, really, it's a whole process of questioning. A lot of the questioning and then your response to their response establishes that baseline of trust. And so once you have that person's attention, then it's your job to enhance that dialogue and that communication to the very best of your ability, so you can help that person, and to your point, inspire them to be better, to work to be better, to seek to be better, because not everybody has all of the information. And sometimes women, do the turtle approach, which is, well, I don't know. And sometimes they don't want to ask questions, because in asking questions, it shows how much you don't know. So it's like, I'll deal with that another day. I'm not, and of course, my whole thrust is that you step in and step out and get right in the middle of it and keep asking questions.
Hmm. I think that's so important is to help them get some clarity too, because
Right,
when we don't feel that, one as we ask the questions, some of them want to push it aside or not answer it or don't know because nobody's ever sat that with them and asked them those questions. What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What do you want for yourselves? It's very I run into people all the time and like nobody's ever asked me that. And it's like you got to start asking yourself. Like God put you on
right.
this earth for a reason. Like you need to, uh figure out what's your dreams? Like, if you could have anything in the world, what would you dream of? And a lot of women I find that don't really dream because they they have limiting beliefs. And so, you know, they just feel like they're the caretaker or this or that, but we are worth so much more than that. And so I love what you're doing into helping them see what more they have and what more they're capable of and how they can get to these, dreams and goals and get their health improved and their wealth improved as well. I think that's amazing.
Exactly, 100%. I think it's the whole worthiness factor.
How can women in your opinion, how can women build a legacy for themselves?
Well, I love volunteering, and I didn't do a lot of volunteering until my 30s, because you're kind of busy with whatever. But then you get involved with United Way or the Cancer Foundation or something simple, something simple. But as soon as you get involved with volunteering, then it's a whole new world, because you're giving your time to enhance something else, either enhance somebody else's life or enhancing the whole cause. And once you have that outwardly focus, it makes a world of difference. I started this Women Worth in Wellness 31 years ago, and now we see women stewarding incredible wealth, both in terms of wealth they've earned, but now starting to inherit. And so now there's a whole new power opportunity. So if you've done volunteerism all the way along, you've got a sense of how this all works and who you would really like to support. If you could write a big check, who would you write the big check to? And have you done your due diligence? Do you know that that charity that you want to direct some funds to, do you know that they're managing their business exceptionally well? So once you've got this power opportunity of stewarding wealth, women need to be more discerning than ever. But that in itself is a huge opportunity to learn, to contribute, to make a difference, to really contribute to enhancing so much in this world. So much.
Mhm. I love that, and I think it's so important. It's like when you volunteer your time, one, maybe you don't do it as much now, but like, in our depending on what age of life people are in, but that volunteer work, that's just giving back to the community, giving back to those maybe you've been able to be helped by an agency or a nonprofit or anything like that. But then it's like making sure that who you volunteer for, you're doing your research, you're doing, make your due diligence that whatever you're giving money to, that they are using your money wisely as well.
Exactly. You don't want to have surprises.
Yes, yes. That's so important. So you also say that, you talk about being a connector. So what are some of the how do you connect what are some of the meaningful relationships you've built? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, one of the main attributes when you're a wealth advisor is to do exactly that because you hear where that person is coming from and what their situation is and what their challenges are. And then it's your job to come up with some solutions and recommendations that are going to enhance all of this and bring it all together. But I never hesitate to go out of my way and be a champion for women any chance I get. Like, oh my goodness, this is terrific that you're doing that. This is one thing that I would recommend that you think about doing. Get in a peer-to-peer advisory group. And they say, well, what's a peer-to-peer advisory group? So again, you share some more information. Get involved with your local chamber of commerce. I was on a podcast a week ago and talking about how important your health is, and then this woman said, well, there's nothing like that happening in my community. I said, I think just everybody, wherever they live, has a local hospital. Like if you call 911 emergency, where do they take you? And so
Mhm.
if there's nothing happening at that hospital, why don't you go in, introduce yourself, and say, could I organize an event with one or two of your doctors and invite some people to come in to that facility so that we can all learn? And I said, in doing so, you're now expanding those learnings beyond just yourself. You'll learn, but others will as well. And also, you're building your brand, you're building your business in terms of really, really reinforcing that this is something that's really important to you. And so, there are always more things that we can do to connect with lots of opportunities locally and then globally. If you care about what in the world's going on the other side of the world, that's an opportunity as well.
And it goes back to what you were saying earlier at the beginning is like if there's something, there's a need or something, like if there's not there, then why don't you create it? Why don't you make
Correct.
that opportunity, right, happen?
Mm, that's it.
I, I love that. So you have been in this business for, your on your own entrepreneur business for 31 years. I just want to say one, congratulations, because most
Thank you.
businesses fail within the first 5 years, right?
Right.
And 31 years ago, like, that's just amazing because there was not a lot of entrepreneurs there, and especially not women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, and I think that that's amazing. How's your journey been? I mean, I know that there's probably been some ups and downs, but how has it been for you for the like, what could you do for a woman who's just starting out today and who wants to build her own legacy and be in this entrepreneur type entrepreneur? What would you say to her today of the
Well,
challenges?
just don't pull back. Just get right out there and keep going. And what ends up happening is, you may advance into this group and then you think, well, really, I don't think I fit in here. Okay, well then go find another group, but don't pull back just because you've had one bad experience. And for anybody in business, like a hospital, They're generally chambers of commerce locally, and definitely get involved with them. The other thing from a wealth plan is partner up with your bank, and depending on your level of wealth, they will have advisors to help you. And if you're in a small business situation, ask who is the small business advisor. Like really get in the middle of all this stuff. Like don't pull back. Just reach out and continually ask people, who should I be talking to? This is something that I'm interested in. And I think over the years, it's been all about doing exactly that, really, really getting in the middle of a lot. Also, as a volunteer, you can volunteer to get involved with a Boys and Girls Club to help young kids learn about business. And through that process, you'll meet other people that are in a similar role to you who are business professionals who want to help young people. So there's just a plethora of possibility when you get out there. Just get out.
I was just gonna say that. It's not gonna happen if you're just sitting there, right? It's not
No,
gonna happen between you and the computer. You need to go get out, you need to meet people, you need to make those connections. And because people will remember and they buy too from who they like, know, and trust. How are they gonna
right,
like you and know you to do business with you if they don't even haven't physically met you or, had that type of, connections being built. And so if they're not just gonna come to you, you have to go out there and find them.
right. And if you've got, I mean, obviously business cards, but put a QR code on the business card. And then once you've connected with a person, follow up. Like now you've got a contact. And that's where the connecting comes from. Like don't miss that opportunity rather than, oh, I'm exhausted from, being out and going to that dinner and talking to so many people. Okay, well, that was just a means to an end. Now you've been there, now you've got some new contacts. So go right to work the next day or the day after. Don't miss a beat and always be positive. We're so used to all the negative stuff popping up first. And again, I really encourage people to just use it as a split screen, like slide the negativity over here, like fade it to black and teach yourself how to default to the positive. And if you went to an event and you expected to meet a dozen people and you met four people, okay, you met four people. So make the most of those four people. Don't focus on the fact that you didn't meet 12 people.
Mhm. I also think that if you had high expectations of, like, say, the example of you wanted to meet a dozen people and you only met 4, are you also at the capacity to handle 12 people? And if not, then
Right.
that's why you only met 4, and making sure that you work your systems so that you're able to handle those 4 people so that when the next event you meet 12, you can still not, like you said, not miss a beat.
You're ready to go. Actually, one other thing. I remember when I first started in the business and you're looking for clients and you create events and you're really disappointed that so few showed up, even though more had registered. And it's very easy to say, okay, well, let's just cancel this and redo it another. No, even if three people show up, three people have shown up. So pretend that those three people are the 50 or 30 that you expected to show up, and then go back to all those contacts who didn't come and let them know that you missed them. And these were the topics that we covered, and this is what we're planning on focusing on next. So you keep that contact going. Like just keep it going. Keep it going.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I think that that's good. I think a lot of people are just like, oh, well, those people didn't show up. I'm not going to follow up. Well, maybe they had something happen,
Right.
or whatever, but keep building that relationship. Don't expect them just to hurry up and join you if you don't, build that relationship. Maybe they just had something happen. Follow up, make sure they're okay or whatever the issue is, and just keep building it. When you have other events, keep them in contact so that they keep, it's kind of like, I think that a lot of relationships, kind of with social media, for example, we're not constantly calling people anymore. We're not using a phone book. We don't have a Rolodex or anything like that like we used to. So we still have to have those relationships. We can't automatically assume that everybody's going to see the media, our reels, our posts, or all the things that we put out there. We got to pick up the phone. We got to make sure we're sending the email or the text message. There's so many things out there just to make sure that we're continuing to build those relationships and following up.
Very, very, very positive. Very, very positive response. Because relationships really are everything. They are everything.
Yeah, absolutely. What I wanted to know is, one of the things you said is you talked about when women are in the right communities, or if they're not in the right community, they need to go and find the right community. For you, was it easy with your community, or how many times did you have to keep moving around or shifting to find the right community?
Well, way back when, it was a lot of women's organizations that I was part of. But then when I partnered with these not-for-profit health-related organizations, you meet a lot of different women there. And maybe they don't become clients, but then they're still contacts. And then once you've got a database of contacts, then they are reaching out to you with information or with events that they're organizing. So it's just a matter of building and going and building and going, and then finding the right place to be. I was a member of an organization called International Women's Forum, but I'm now 3 hours from Toronto and they meet. And finally I realized I can't do these meetings. But in the meantime, I've made all kinds of contacts from having been a member, so I
Mhm.
can still keep in touch with those people. It's just that I'm not going to their regular events anymore. So it's just a big build over time. It
Mhm.
just, it takes time. It doesn't just happen magically that you're in the right group, but get in the middle of possibilities, meet some people, determine if it's, and once you start talking to people, one question is, what other groups are you involved with? There you go. And they'll say, "Listen, we've got an event next Tuesday. Why don't you join me?" I mean, it just is a build, 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 build.
Mhm, I love that. I think that's so important. And the thing is that it's like a stepping stone, right? And if it's
It
this one's
is.
not right, this
Yeah,
is maybe, or and it's a season too. Like you said, you were closer to one, you moved, so then you just kept those relationships going. I know that for me, I've traveled a lot, and I've as I meet people on the plane, I mean, I've had some of those people on my podcast. It's just because I built those relationships. Didn't have a
perfect.
podcast then, but I kept talking to them, and I was like, hey, building those relationships, getting that contact, like you said, getting in touch with them if you have a business card, a QR code, so that you can get their information, they can get yours, and you guys can
Right.
continue to connect.
Yep, because their MO is the same as yours. They're out and about, they're reaching out, they've got a role to play, and they definitely wanna meet new people too.
What's one conversation you think that every woman everywhere should be having more often?
Um, I think well, first of all, I will share an example with you. I have this friend who was a trustee for a young person who was then turning 18. So the young person has now turned 18. So he introduces him to the advisor who has been looking after these funds over the years while he was a minor. So the advisor says to him, "Delighted to meet you. I'll be happy to work with you, but I have two requirements. The first is, as an 18-year-old, you have to have a will. And the second is you have to have an accountant." Like, in other words, I'm not doing tax returns. I certainly do tax planning as part of what my role is. But I thought that is so powerful, talking about your demise when the person's 18 years old. So, in answer to your question, I think women need to think about, imagine it's the day after you've been run over by the bus. What does your world look like? And that really makes the statement in terms of what do you want to have happen should something happen to you. And certainly we hope that nothing will happen to you until your 100th birthday or whatever. But, there are no guarantees. Nobody knows. None of us gets out of here alive. We know that for sure.
Mhm.
So have those conversations. And, if you're with your girlfriends, like, what do you care about? Like, what's really important to you in terms of your life? I saw something recently where it said you should write your own obituary. And then can you live up to that obituary that you've just written? I thought,
That's
well, now
good.
isn't that interesting? I don't think I'm there yet, but it's a conversation that I think nobody ever wants to talk about. But if you're a parent, you've got some kids, you've got a partner, those are the kinds of things that you need to talk about now and again. And if you have a wealth advisor, then those are conversations you have in the presence of the wealth advisor, because you may not be having those conversations at home. Like, it's kind of the last thing on your priority list. But with a wealth advisor, that's their business. And they'll be saying, well, what if? And, if this person premature or predeceases you, and you inherit that person's wealth, and then you have your own plan, estate plan, will you then honor the first person's philanthropic statement because it's all folded in? So those are just little bits and pieces of conversation, because when you haven't had that conversation and when something happens that's different what the person had intended, that's when it's a disappointment.
Mm. Yeah, that's such good advice, and you're right, like, we all have an end date, right? And so what we should be having those conversations. I know that a couple of years ago, we unexpectedly lost a member in our family, and so I created a note for my family. I created a note on my phone, shared it with them, and I'm like, "This is what I want for my funeral. This is the things. These are how I
Good for
want
you.
everything." And they thought, "Oh my gosh, why are you doing this?" And I'm like, "Because I don't want you to go through what we just had to go through with trying to plan something, with not knowing somebody's wishes, not knowing, having that conversation." And so I have a lot of things, planned out already. And they thought my children thought I was crazy, but I'm like, no, because I wanted you to know what my expectations are and what I want. Um, because I think it's important. I think it's, I even have what kind of music I want played.
Good for you. No, that's so smart. That is so smart. Well, again, the thing that I emphasize is that people own their life, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Mhm.
Like own your life. Nobody else is going to. And you've got every right. You're very worthy. This is your life. Own it. What do you want? Good for you. That is amazing, Angelina.
Oh, thank you. I thank you. And I think it's really important conversations that women should be having though. I think
Right,
it's important to have the will, and like I love how you use it like it's the day after you got,
right.
hit by a bus and people are like, well it's true. Like you got to think about it in that way. So that's
And
important.
and you realize that at that point, your family members are stressed. So you're relieving a lot of that stress.
Yeah. I think that's so important. So can you just kind of talk to us, like if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get connected with you? I mean, I'll have your links in the show notes, but you are in Canada. Do you work throughout the world though?
I do with my seminars and my webinars all over the world. And, the only thing we can thank COVID for is that we got Zoom as a result of it. So the best way to keep in touch is just send me an email, which means you go into our database and then you'll be hearing exactly what we're up to. And it's Nancy at womenworthwellness.com, and NANCY at womenworthwellness.com. So just send us a quick email. Ask me a question. I'm happy to answer and be helpful any way I possibly can.
Yes, for sure. I'll definitely have all your information in the show notes as well, and the link so people can get in contact with you and everything. But one of the things I think is important is you had mentioned about one of the things was being on top of your game. And so what does being on top of your game mean, and how can women get there even during difficult seasons?
Well, number one, your life is an asset, and it's your asset. We know what in the world is going on, and not everybody has the privilege of having a life. Really. I mean, there's some really, really challenging situations, as we all know. So know that you're privileged, but then really honor that privilege. Honor it and own it, and be the best you can be with your health, making it a priority. You can't afford to be sick, and there are ways that you can head off a lot of potential problems longer term. As far as your wealth plan is concerned, find a wealth advisor with whom you can work with. And once you get everything in order, I mean, really, once you get all your whole scenario in order, and you're doing some volunteering, you're doing some giving back, you're doing some legacy planning, all of a sudden your shoulders drop. People just have a skip in their step. They just have a level of confidence that's second to none. And that's what you want to work to getting, and then review it, because it's not static. Once you get everything in order, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. So always make it a priority every 6 months or so to do a review. I mean, daily you're checking in with yourself, but every 6 months overall, make sure that you've got everything in as good an order as it possibly can be, because once you do, then you're in a position to help others.
Mm, so important. I love that. I love that. Well, as we wrap up, I always like to ask my guest. What is one thing or word or phrase and action, and you may have something we already talked about, but what is something that people can do today in order to help them refine and shine?
Well, this one woman who was a guest speaker with a 400 participant women's summit. She's very well respected in Canada. She said, "Okay, women, put your arms up." So they kind of go, they're in a session.
Mhm.
She said, "Put your arms up." And that's my logo. Like every person who's listening, if I was going to feel like I'm on top of the world, what would I need to do? What do I need to work on? Because that's the penultimate is that and it's standing on a little hill. I had one graphic designer say, "No, shouldn't that be like underlying?" I said, "No, that's in a ditch. I
Oh,
want them
yeah.
standing on a hill." And it's like, yes, yes, I've arrived. So a visual.
Mm, I love that. I love that. That's so important. Well, I thank you for all that you have shared with us today. I think you have provided such key things that women today need to remember to do, and men as listening to as well. Like you got to have that same type of thing, have that will, have that trusted advisory, all the things in place. I think it's so important. So thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Angelina, and keep up all your great work. So, so, so important.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind the scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.